Welcome back, radiant souls, to Golden Fortune Leo, the quiet corner of the cosmos where destiny stops pretending to be mysterious and just tells you the truth in plain English. I'm your longtime researcher, part astrologer, part psychologist, part novelist, and a slightly impatient monk of modern times. Around here, we treat astrology not as entertainment but as a mirror for consciousness. And today's reflection is loud enough to wake the sleeping lions among you. The theme, a text in 6 days that could change everything. Whether it comes as a message, an apology, or a confession, the cards suggest that this moment will not simply alter your mood, it could rewrite your sense of self within the story you've been living. Leo, this isn't about a random notification buzzing at midnight. It's about what that message represents. The universe's talent for using small human gestures to test enormous spiritual muscles. The month of October doesn't sneak in, it kicks down the door. Somewhere between impulse and destiny, something is about to reveal how far you've come in your year of triumph 2025. You, among the so-called chosen ones, are being asked to learn one of the hardest human lessons, how to hold power without crushing anyone beneath it, and how to love without losing your spine. The first card, the Queen of Pentacles reversed, arrives like a mirror with bags under its eyes. Every Leo I've ever met carries an unspoken addiction to being needed. It's noble, dramatic, and sometimes wildly exhausting. The Queen reversed is the caregiver who forgot to care for herself, the professional multitasker who's quietly unraveling behind the polite smile. Her crown may still glitter, but it's sitting slightly askew from all the weight she's carried. You can almost hear her voice saying, "I'm fine," while her energy leaks from every seam. This archetype might represent you or the person closest to your orbit. Someone in this dynamic has been doing too much, giving too often, spinning a whole solar system by hand, and calling it balance. The Queen reversed tells the truth most Leos hate to admit: even the sun burns out when no one gives it night. When this card appears, home feels chaotic, finances wobble, the body aches from pretending to be invincible. Generosity, once sacred, becomes a burden that blurs into resentment. The healer turns into the patient, and the savior secretly wants to be rescued. If this sounds familiar, you might already know the incoming message's source. Perhaps it's someone who once relied on you until your patience cracked, or someone you left behind when their chaos became contagious. They might reach out in the coming days not to drain you again, but to test whether the bond can heal. Sometimes the text that changes everything doesn't say much. It just opens a door you assumed was locked. If the Queen reversed represents you, this month asks for brutal honesty. You can't save everyone, Leo. The world will not end if you let one plate drop. You're not betraying your purpose by saying no. In fact, boundaries are one of the universe's favorite love languages. The cosmos isn't asking you to abandon compassion, it's reminding you that compassion without balance becomes self-harm in costume. The overgiver's crash is not failure, it's feedback. And yet, because you're a Leo, I know exactly what you'll do. You'll read this, nod solemnly, and then go right back to saving someone who refuses to help themselves. It's practically your sport. The difference this time is awareness. When you overextend now, you'll feel it instantly: the shortness of breath, the irritation disguised as generosity. Awareness gives you choice, and choice is power. That's how the Queen finds her throne again, not by rescuing the kingdom, but by cleaning her own palace first. There's a quiet humor in how the universe works. It waits until you're overbooked, overtired, and one bill away from hysteria, then sends a message that says, "Hey, can we talk?" Cosmic comedy at its finest. But every spiritual curriculum needs a final exam, and for you, that test is coming through the hum of a phone. Maybe it's a family member, a lover, a friend who disappeared into their own storm. Whatever form it takes, remember that your reply writes the next chapter. You can reopen the door, or you can finally close it without anger. Both are victories. In psychological terms, this reading addresses emotional labor fatigue, the hidden exhaustion of constantly managing other people's moods. You've been the therapist, the crisis manager, the emotional first responder. The Queen reversed warns that empathy without rest becomes performance. So take a cue from Buddhist wisdom, stop grasping at what drains you. In Zen, even compassion has posture. It bows, then steps back. October, then, is not punishment. It's recalibration. The universe is fine-tuning the instruments of your life so the next song you play doesn't come out as noise. And yes, a message in 6 days might be the catalyst, but don't romanticize it. The real change isn't in the words on your phone, it's in how you read them. The past version of you would have dropped everything to fix someone else's mess. The current version pauses, breathes, and decides whether the situation deserves your light. That's the kind of growth that defines the chosen ones in the year of Triumph 2025. Triumph isn't loud, it's lucid. It's knowing you can act but choosing restraint. It's letting love flow through you without drowning in it. So if the Queen of Pentacles reversed is calling your name this month, take it as both a warning and an invitation. Step back, refill your cup, remember that even the brightest stars need darkness to glow. Somewhere out there, the message is already traveling toward you. 6 days, maybe less. It may come wrapped in apology or ambiguity, but either way, you'll be ready. Because this time, you'll read it not as a plea for rescue, but as proof that your energy is valuable enough for the universe to test. You'll smile, straighten your crown, and answer only if it feels like peace. That's not arrogance. That's evolution. And that's exactly what makes you, Leo, the golden heart of this galaxy. The Magician reversed is a peculiar mirror. Upright, he's the alchemist of the Zodiac, the clever inventor who knows how to turn lemons into symphonies. But when he flips upside down, his toolkit scatters across the floor, and suddenly he's staring at life like someone who just lost the Wi-Fi password to their own destiny. That's the frequency surrounding you right now, Leo, or perhaps the person who once mirrored your light. Someone here has forgotten their rhythm. The music is still playing, but they're offbeat, doubting every step, wondering when confidence became such an expensive luxury. This card often arrives when the sharp mind turns foggy, when even simple decisions feel like assembling furniture without instructions. It's not stupidity, it's spiritual jet lag. The soul remembers the way, but the ego keeps spinning the map upside down. For many Leos, this reversed magician shows up as the ghost of imposter syndrome. You might be dazzling the room while secretly suspecting someone's about to expose you as a fraud. Or maybe you used to have a golden touch, career humming, creativity alive, love stable, and now you can't seem to catch a break. It happens. Even the sun has cloudy days. Sometimes the reversal happens because you've been chasing perfection rather than presence, or because the applause you once depended on has gone quiet long enough for you to question whether you ever deserved it. The cosmic joke here is that the only thing missing is belief. The tools are still on the table, you just forgot they were yours. For others, this energy comes from another person, a partner, a family member, a friend who was once the dependable magician in your story. Now they're the one who disappeared mid-trick. They might have promised forever and vanished by Tuesday. Yet the energy doesn't feel malicious, it feels like burnout dressed as betrayal. When someone can barely hold their own chaos together, they inevitably drop the pieces that belong to you. That's not forgiveness, it's comprehension. The universe wants you to understand that empathy and accountability are not synonyms. You can recognize their exhaustion without volunteering to be their therapist. Your role is not to rebuild their self-esteem. It's to pick up your own wand and remember that your power was never theirs to give. And here's where it gets entertaining. The magician reversed tends to attract irony. The moment you decide to stop fixing others, they start texting again. Cosmic timing has a wicked sense of humor. You'll probably receive that "Hey, how have you been?" message exactly on the day you finally stopped caring. If that happens, take it as a compliment from the universe. It means your energy just leveled up. When your confidence recalibrates, old ghosts always want a sequel. Now, let's shift to the 4th house, that mysterious basement of the zodiac ruled by Cancer, where emotion lives rent-free. This part of your chart governs family, home, ancestry, the psychological wallpaper you didn't choose but keep living with. It's the house of lineage, memory, and unresolved kitchen ghosts. Every Leo I've ever met carries a strange relationship with the idea of home. You crave warmth and loyalty, but the moment someone gets too comfortable rearranging your furniture, your independence starts plotting an escape. You want devotion without domestication, love without surveillance. It's complicated, beautifully so. This October, those contradictions rise to the surface. The 4th house suggests that an old tie, someone who once felt like family, maybe literally so, will resurface. It could be an ex you shared a lease with, a parent you quietly drifted from, or a friend whose absence still stings. Whatever the story, it's not coincidence. It's ancestral bookkeeping. The universe has been running emotional audits, and your file is due for review. The goal isn't drama, it's clearance. Old emotional debts are being called in, not to punish you, but to keep 2025 from becoming another rerun of unhealed patterns. The year of triumph cannot carry last year's ghosts in its luggage. So, yes, the text you're expecting or pretending not to is karmic paperwork. Maybe it brings reconciliation, maybe closure. But the victory isn't in what you receive, it's in what you release. The 4th house reminds you that putting something down can be as sacred as picking something up. Sometimes peace doesn't arrive through reunion but through silence that finally stops buzzing in your chest. And now we arrive at the element of earth, the quiet architect of every real transformation. The reading leans heavily towards stability, practicality, and building something that won't collapse under mood swings. Real estate, finances, daily routines, this is where the cosmos demands adult supervision. If your life has felt like a storage closet of unfinished projects and emotional souvenirs, this is your cue to reorganize. For some Leos, that literally means moving packing boxes, changing addresses, starting over in a new landscape that actually matches the person you've become. For others, the move is internal, a relocation of loyalty, an eviction notice served to the outdated version of yourself. The cards of change in distant horizons suggest your environment is evolving faster than your comfort zone. Don't resist it. Transformation rarely sends a calendar invite. If there's an earth sign, Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn playing a major role, pay attention. They are your mirror in patience. These signs operate at the pace of glaciers, which drives fiery Leos insane, but there's wisdom in their rhythm. They don't rush miracles, they maintain them. Their lesson for you: consistency is not boredom, it's power wearing sensible shoes. If one of them reappears this month, evaluate their actions, not their poetry. Anyone can promise change, only the patient can prove it. This earth energy also calls you to treat patience as a spiritual practice. In an age obsessed with instant manifestations and 30-second affirmations, genuine endurance has become almost erotic. There's nothing sexier than someone who builds slowly and keeps showing up. Maybe that's your next magnetism, the calm strength of a Leo who doesn't chase, doesn't boast, just stays. The cosmos rewards those who move with deliberation, not desperation. So, to sum up this layered symphony, the Magician reversed asks you to trust your own competence again. The 4th house reminds you that healing the family narrative is part of your freedom, and the earth energy teaches that stability isn't dull, it's divine. You are rebuilding your foundation not for applause but for peace. Somewhere between confidence and humility, motion and stillness, you'll find the rhythm that was never lost, just momentarily out of calibration. And when that long-awaited message arrives, you'll know whether it's a beginning or an echo. Either way, you'll be the one holding the wand this time. The tarot spread for Leo this month reads like a novel that starts with silence and ends with liberation. The separation and healing family issues cards aren't here to punish you, they're here to make you pause, reflect, and, for once, stop pretending that solitude automatically equals strength. Every Leo has that famous line ready, "I can handle it alone." You can, of course. You've handled worse. You've walked through heartbreak like a runway, turned grief into performance art, and smiled through betrayal as if auditioning for sainthood. But the truth is, you weren't designed to live forever in emotional exile. Even the king of the jungle needs a pride. The cosmic joke is that Leos often forget the second half of the lesson: you can do it alone, but you're not supposed to. This part of the reading carries the tender frequency of a mother and child, sometimes literal, often metaphorical. Maybe you're repeating the same emotional choreography your mother once danced, overgiving, over-explaining, overextending, convinced that if you just love hard enough, you'll be safe. Or maybe you're on the other end of the equation, the one who walked away to protect your sanity, now haunted by guilt that hums just under the roar of your independence. Either way, the lesson is not punishment, it's purification. Forgiveness isn't about surrender, it's about detoxing the emotional bloodstream. You can't summon real magic with poison in your heart. The reversed magician, unable to perform, is the perfect metaphor for what happens when resentment sits in your system too long. If that long-awaited message appears this month, a simple text, maybe even a clumsy apology, your job is not to make a scene. Don't perform for the audience of your pain. Don't gloat. Don't collapse into nostalgia. Just witness. That's the higher octave of Leo energy, the ruler who knows when to roar and when to rule in silence. True confidence doesn't need to broadcast itself, it radiates quietly. Silence can be a spiritual flex. When you refuse to respond out of ego, you start responding from wisdom. That's what Buddhist teachers mean when they talk about right speech, the kind that heals instead of scorches. Sometimes, the most eloquent sentence you can deliver is no sentence at all. Then comes the trilogy of transformation, the Kipper cards, toil and labor, change, distant horizons. Together, they read like the turning point in a good novel, the part where the protagonist realizes they've been carrying the plot on their back and decides to drop it. You've been working too hard for too little emotional return. Maybe you've been the one holding relationships together with duct tape and daily affirmations. Maybe you've been paying rent in a house called hope that's long past eviction. The moment you say, "I can't carry this anymore," isn't weakness, it's spiritual realism. Even Atlas needed a chiropractor. The change card often predicts literal relocation. Someone could be moving out, changing jobs, or emotionally packing up from a place that's turned toxic. It's the universe saying, "You're overdue for an upgrade, start folding your attachments." The distant horizons card widens that lens. It's about freedom, expansion, and daring to sail away from what's familiar. You can't anchor and expect the ship to fly. Letting go is terrifying because it means trusting your own wings. But stagnation, as always, costs more. So when that message arrives, yes, the one you've been pretending not to anticipate, don't panic if it stirs the urge to move, reply, or finally end something. Maybe you'll buy a ticket, maybe you'll hit send, maybe you'll close a chapter that's been begging for punctuation since 2022. The action doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be honest. The universe has a soft spot for people who act from truth, even if it looks like chaos to everyone else. Now we enter the love oracle portion of the story, the emotional laboratory of mismatched languages. Introverted. Promise. Affection. Family. Loyalty. Together they paint a portrait of two people speaking love in dialects that never shared a translator. One is quiet, shy, emotionally restrained, the other is expressive, bold, allergic to ambiguity. It's a cosmic duet between jazz and classical music, both beautiful, both valid, both driving each other insane. Maybe you talked too much, maybe they didn't talk enough. Maybe your promises were poetic, theirs were practical, and somehow the vows got lost in translation. This incoming message, the one the spread keeps whispering about, might serve as the bridge between those languages. Someone wants to show they've changed. But the question isn't whether they have evolved, it's whether you have. You can't rebuild a new temple with the same shaky foundation that collapsed last time. If they've done their homework, great, but make sure you've done yours. Loyalty, after all, doesn't mean imprisonment. It's not a sentence, it's a rhythm. Real loyalty is consistency rooted in truth, not obligation coated in guilt. And then the moon cards slide in like the score change in a film. New moon in Pisces, meditate and contemplate, and waxing moon, the energy is gaining momentum. These two together describe emotional acceleration. Things that felt foggy last month begin to clarify. The heart you thought had gone numb starts pulsing again. You feel movement, like a current pulling you forward. But the warning here is subtle: momentum without mindfulness is chaos wearing perfume. Leo energy burns bright and fast, but without intention, that fire can scorch rather than light the way. Pisces, the sign of the dreamer, reminds you to balance action with reflection. Don't confuse emotional intensity for truth. When the energy rises, when you feel that surge of optimism, affection, or even anger, pause. Take a breath before you respond, even if that means sitting on your hands for an hour. Pisces teaches that not every wave deserves a surfboard. Sometimes the tide is there only to teach you patience. It's ironic that the sign most famous for roaring is being asked this month to master silence. But silence isn't emptiness, it's signal strength. When you step back from reacting, life reveals its next move on its own. The text, the conversation, the opportunity, all of it comes, and you'll know instinctively which direction to take. Because by then, you'll have transformed from the performer to the observer, from the exhausted giver to the centered receiver. So, what's the takeaway, Leo? Separation isn't the opposite of connection, it's the prelude to clarity. Healing family issues doesn't mean rewriting the past, it means refusing to let the past keep rewriting you. Movement, change, distant horizons, these aren't warnings, they're upgrades. Love is still on the table, but it requires a new emotional vocabulary. And the moon, with her patient cycles, keeps whispering, feel deeply, act wisely, and remember that sometimes the bravest roar is the one you never have to make aloud. That's your October lesson: evolution through awareness, liberation through release. The message may arrive in 6 days, but the awakening has already begun. When the angels finally spoke up in this reading, Leo, they didn't whisper, they gave you a clean, elegant 3-word syllabus for October: romance, compromise, and big happy changes. These aren't Hallmark sentiments, they're spiritual physics. Romance, first of all, is not a trap, it's a thread, something meant to connect souls, not entangle them. When love works, it's not because you both merged into one blurry identity, it's because you each remained whole and still chose to stay. That's the paradox most Leos struggle with. You want intimacy, but you also want to be worshipped, and balancing the two often feels like juggling fire while wearing silk. The angels are reminding you that love isn't submission, it's synchronization. Then comes compromise, the most misunderstood word in the Zodiac. Two egos can't rule one kingdom, no matter how majestic the decor. Compromise doesn't mean lowering your crown, it means learning to share the sunlight. It's the quiet act of saying, I can stand tall without standing alone. This month tests how gracefully you can coexist without conquering. And big happy changes, that's not cosmic fluff. It's the payoff that comes when pride takes a step back and honesty walks in. Once you stop clenching your expectations, life rushes back in with new friends, repaired family ties, and maybe even a relationship reborn with cleaner air. The universe never withholds joy, it just waits until your hands are empty enough to receive it. If you've been waiting for reconciliation, yes, it's possible, but only if both sides soften. The cards don't show fairy tale apologies, they show mature accountability. Think less Hollywood reunion scene and more two grown adults admitting they both contributed to the chaos. Love after conflict doesn't require amnesia, it requires evolution. You can't rewrite the past, but you can decide whether the sequel deserves a better script. Now, stepping back from the romance, let's talk about what the universe is actually doing with all this celestial noise. The reversed cards, the texts, the silence, the sudden emotional earthquakes, they're not random. This is the universe's annual spring cleaning, except it's happening in October. Think of it as the cosmic landlord knocking on your door, clipboard in hand, politely asking you to vacate the emotional leases you've been renewing out of habit. You've been hoarding old stories, expired resentments, outdated self-images. The Queen of Pentacles reversed and the Magician reversed show the classic psychological pattern of codependency, one person over-functioning while the other under-functions. It's an unequal dance disguised as devotion. When that balance breaks, both parties must relearn autonomy. From a therapist's view, it's detox. From a Buddhist lens, it's right effort, doing what's necessary but not clinging to outcome. You can't control whether they text back, you can only control how you breathe when they do. Here's the irony, though you'll probably nod at all this wisdom and then check your phone 5 minutes later. You'll squint at the screen like a detective in a noir film. 6 days, you'll mutter. Which 6 days exactly? Relax, cosmic diva. The point isn't the calendar, it's the consciousness. When that notification finally lights up your phone, don't type a novel. Don't post cryptic quotes about closure. Just exist. Let the message land. The lesson isn't in what they say, it's in how you respond. You're ruled by the sun, not by Wi-Fi notifications. The real turning point here, Leo, isn't about getting someone back, it's about getting your power back. The Magician reversed flips upright the moment you remember that your tools were never lost, just buried under emotional clutter. Belief is the ignition key. The moment you decide your voice still matters, the energy flows again. Your creativity reignites, your boundaries realign, your heart stops outsourcing validation. Dust off those inner tools: intuition, courage, humor, discernment. Use them. Your magic doesn't need external confirmation, it needs focus. Every magician has moments when the stage goes dark. The trick is realizing the spotlight was always inside you. For those of you who resonate with the phrase chosen ones, understand that being chosen isn't a cosmic lottery prize, it's an assignment. You're being asked to model resilience when others collapse, to love without losing self, to forgive without erasing the lesson. The Year of Triumph 2025 isn't a parade, it's a training ground. Triumph doesn't mean life stops challenging you, it means you stop flinching when it does. This is the year your crown is recalibrated, fitted to the head of someone wiser, quieter, and far less desperate to prove anything. The chosen ones don't need applause, they embody example. So when that message comes, the one the cards keep teasing, don't make decisions from nostalgia. Nostalgia is a storyteller with bad memory. Decide from wisdom. Ask yourself whether this moment expands your peace or just reopens an old wound. Breathe before answering. The universe has a bias toward those who act from clarity, not impulse. And if you choose not to reply at all, that's also an answer. Silence, when rooted in calm, is louder than any declaration. Now, picture this final scene. The phone lights up. It's late. 6 days have passed, maybe less. The name on the screen stirs something familiar: hope, regret, curiosity, all tangled together. The message itself is short, tentative, a sentence trembling between apology and nostalgia. You take a breath. The old you would have sprinted toward that flicker of validation, heart pounding, ready to fix, to perform, to explain. The new you doesn't rush. You read, you exhale, and for the first time, you realize that forgiveness doesn't require reunion. Peace doesn't need witnesses. You smile not out of pride, but out of recognition. The story doesn't own you anymore. You've already completed the arc. The text isn't salvation, it's confirmation. The universe is simply nodding, saying, see? You didn't need rescue. You needed remembering. That's your true magic, Leo, the quiet authority of someone who no longer confuses attention for affection. As you step through this so-called 6-day portal, know that you're not walking toward anyone else, you're walking back to yourself. The Angels' Trinity romance, compromise, big happy changes has always been about internal realignment. Love becomes sweeter once it stops being survival. Compromise becomes possible once pride loosens its grip. And big happy changes? They're the natural outcome of all that emotional spring cleaning. Once you stop renting space to fear, joy moves in and pays on time. So, Leo, take your victory with grace. Celebrate not because someone texted, but because you can finally receive or release without losing equilibrium. That's the essence of your sign at its highest vibration: generosity without depletion, leadership without domination, passion without possession. Remember that your greatest romance is with life itself, and the universe is a flirt who rewards those who stay playful. As this chapter closes, breathe deeply and let your shoulders drop. You've earned rest, laughter, and a bit of cosmic mischief. Enjoy your coffee without checking your horoscope. Call a friend for no reason. Dance even if no one's watching. The universe loves a Leo who remembers that joy is both a duty and a right. You've survived enough plot twists for a lifetime. Now let yourself enjoy the sunlight you were born to carry. And if you want to keep walking this strange, luminous path with me, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Golden Fortune Leo. This is where we turn starlight into sense, heartbreak into humor, and chaos into cosmic choreography. Until next time, keep your crown polished, your heart open, and your phone on silent just in case destiny calls while you're busy living.